There's no one else that can give a better estimate or an appraisal better than a local agent that's being honest and unbiased on that price of a property to a vendor.
You sort of have to flush what happened in the past because you can't change it. You can't go back in time. None of those decisions can be revisited.
Prices have been stable, fairly stable-ish for the last year. They've bottomed. Are they going to go further south? No, I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
Welcome to Where's My Money? One man, $1 million of debt, one podcast to find a way out.
Welcome back to Where's My Money, the award-winning podcast. Yes, I can say that now, and I'm going to continue to do so, where I try and tackle the world of money, trying to understand it, trying to break it down, and just trying to get better at it so you can do the same. Just last week, 630,000 properties in the super city of Auckland received their new CVs. Council valuations are a major point of interest for property-obsessed Aucklanders like me, especially when it comes to buying or selling. They represent the council's estimate of the value of every residential and commercial property in the region. Are they a reason to stress out though? Surprise, surprise, I initially thought so, but as I tend to in this podcast, I decided to ask some experts about it instead. We'll talk to Ray from Enable Me, who's a bit of a gun when it comes to numbers and strategies. But first, I thought, who better to talk to about property values and what the fuck a CV actually is than a guy who deals with them every single day and tries to squeeze the most he can out of the market for vendors, aka people selling their houses. Ronald Hachache works for Ray White in West Auckland, and he is good. He's constantly ranked inside Ray White's top 20 agents nationally, putting him in the top 1% of real estate agents. He also helped Laura and I sell our first house. So I asked him to join me in the Where's My Money studio, where I asked him whether, after a year or two of watching my property values sliding backwards, if a new super low CV appearing in front of me is a good time to panic.
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding. There's a big misunderstanding out there on CVs and what they do and how they work and what they're there for. I was actually talking to you before we came live or on air, whatever, and I was telling you is one thing that determines a property's value, and that's the market.
Yeah.
And CVs are not the market. That's the first thing. But look, there are some there's some merit to them. You can't rule them out completely, and we'll touch on that in a second. But a CV, basically, what is a CV? It's a way for the council has a budget for the year. All right, the budget is whatever it is for the year, and they need to do X, Y, Z, and they need a way to determine how they're going to apportion that budget to each individual homeowner.
Because they need us to pay our rates on our property.
Correct.
Right? Yep.
And the only way they can apportion it is by having some sort of evaluation or valuation system.
Yeah.
So sometimes people used to refer to them as RV, which I don't like that terminology.
Rateable value.
Rateable value is correct. It is a rateable value, but when you shorten that to RV, I don't like that. It's wrong because that's actually when we say RV, we generally in the industry we mean registered valuation. Right?
Okay.
So a lot of people say RV.
It's a bit of a misnomer.
It is a misnomer. So rateable value is the correct term, or council valuation. A CV, you can shorten it to CV, and it's literally a way just to apportion rates. How are we going to apportion these rates? This budget. How are we going to apportion this budget to each individual owner?
Yeah.
So someone in I don't know, somewhere Freeman's Bay, for example, or Greyland is paying more than the person in I don't know, in Massey, for example.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's as basic as that.
And that's your stomping ground is West Auckland.
It is West Auckland. I know it very well.
So when my CV 2 weeks ago was close to what I paid for it 3 years ago,
Right.
all of a sudden, based on my CV, I've lost $400,000 of what the council thinks I'm sitting on, right?
Well, here's the thing. Did that mean that your property was worth $400,000 more? Let's say they came out yesterday, 2 days ago. Did that mean your property was worth $400,000 more 2 days ago? No. It doesn't. The market's going to dictate what that is. So if we take that logic and we say, okay, today the CVs came out and let's say the property's worth $1 million.
Yep.
All right, today.
That's pretty much it. Yep.
Well, okay, so it's $1 million. Let's say it's worth $1 million in the new CV, and the old CV it was 1.5, let's say, for example. Did that mean that property was worth 1.5 and the buyer was going to go and pay 1.5 2 days ago and today they're going to pay $1 million? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. A council appoints third-party independent valuation companies, QV and what's the other one? Optian Solutions as well.
Sure.
They go in and they run, it's data.
Yeah.
Right, they get a whole lot of data. By and large, that data is actually fairly accurate. I've got to give it to them.
Okay.
There is some merit to them. These companies are massive companies. Right?
They have to be good at what they do,
They have
right?
to be good at what they do, correct. They can't just pop figures out from thin air and just, it's random. It's not. It's actually, by and large, fairly accurate for that period. In 2024, remember, it's made. Now, in the past, when CVs have come out, you've had a year of growth, usually a year of growth, and the following year you're looking and saying, oh, the CVs aren't accurate. To be fair with you, for the last year, that majority of the market, in Auckland at least, has remained fairly stable.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that growth, or you haven't seen that big drop. It's remained fairly stable for the last year, right? So if I actually did an analysis of CVs of properties in West Auckland that we have in our office, and I'm looking at what they're selling for. By and large, they're actually pretty close, pretty accurate. There are always case-by-case situations, though, don't get me wrong. So there's some things that CVs don't pick up on. For example, if you have non-consented, so you don't need building consent to go and do some improvements in your property.
Yeah.
That isn't taken into consideration.
True. So if I've gone and put a new kitchen in the last 2 years, council might not
They
know
won't
about
pick up on that.
Yeah.
No. You could have gone and spent $50,000 on a new kitchen and done this amazing improvement to it, opened it all up. You took out non-structural walls, opened it all up. You have this amazing view. That can't be taken into consideration.
Equally, someone might have built 10 townhouses right next to me, and that's probably not taken into consideration either, right?
Correct. So that's the other thing. So, but by and large, are they do a pretty good job. I'm not going to discredit them. They do a pretty good job for value, if you like, for apportioning of those rates. Yeah, I think they're pretty good.
Okay, so should people pay attention to them then, or sort of use them in consideration with a bunch of other factors? Do you see them in Auckland as a ratio of what they should be paying, or is it as case by case, suburb by suburb?
Look, it's always case by case, always case by case. But it doesn't matter what I say, and it doesn't matter what the next person says. The market will pay attention to them.
Which sounds like real estate agent chat to me.
No,
I don't know what it's worth. I'd say the market's going to define what this house is worth.
But a good agent, here's the thing, and here's the reality of it. A good agent, a very good agent that works the area well.
And working for the seller.
Will be able to tell that seller what that property is worth.
Yeah.
There's no one else that can give a better sort of an estimate or an appraisal better than a local agent that's being honest and unbiased, giving his opinion or her opinion on that price of a property to a vendor. That's the best sort of appraisal you're going to get.
Yep.
So if you're worried about the value of your property, speak to a local trusted real estate agent.
Or a bunch of them.
Well, see, okay, so you could get 3 different agents will give you 3 different answers.
Yeah.
One may not be experienced in the area. One might be trying to buy what we call in the industry buying a listing by over quoting it in order to get a sale. You've got to be careful. But someone that's trusted and sells locally and will back it up with some statistics, has sold similar properties in the area, will know pretty close to what that property or where the market would see value in that property, because they've seen the objections, they've seen the pros, they've seen the cons.
Right. Okay, so it's only a couple of weeks into these new CVs. Have you seen a reaction from buyers or sellers? Are people panicking?
Yeah.
Or are buyers going, fuck yes, this is my time?
Well, does it really make a difference? Okay, so if I see the CVs, a buyer comes and says, oh, the new CVs, I'm going to tell you a story in a second, but a buyer comes and sees this new CV at $1 million, let's say, and, I'm going to pay $1 million for this property, but 2 days ago or last week or the week before that it was 1.5. Were you going to pay 1.5? No, they weren't. No. I mean, do buyers use it to their advantage? If it works in their advantage, yeah, they do.
They'll have a crack at it.
It's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal human behavior. There was a story. So I actually read a story similar in one of the media outlets yesterday. Actually, but we've seen 2 similar instances. I was talking to one of my friends this morning, real estate agent, also owns another office out in central suburbs. And she said to me, we had a deal where we had a contract on this property, a conditional contract at whatever it was, 1.6 it was. And the CV on this property had been $2 million or just over $2 million. And then it had dropped to, I think, 1.1 or 1.2 or something like that. Big drop.
Yeah.
The buyer panics, sees a new CV, panics. They pull out of the deal.
Oh.
Yeah, they pull out of the deal. 2 days later, it just goes to show that it didn't matter what the CV was. The buyer was going to pay 1.6 on a property that has now a valuation of, I think, 1.2.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, the buyer comes down, gets back to their senses, comes back on paper and buys the property.
For the 1.6.
For the 1.6.
Sweet.
Because that is market value.
Yeah. That's what they were prepared to pay 2 days
100%.
ago. Why should a number change that?
It doesn't matter what anyone puts as a value on property. A property is always worth what a buyer or the buyer that's prepared to pay the most for that property pays for that property. That's what a property is worth.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say a property is worth what the underbidder thinks it's worth on an auction, or what this person or my father-in-law thinks it's worth. It's not. It's what the highest bidder is prepared to pay for it. You have a willing seller and a willing buyer. That's all that determines the price.
And a great agent to connect the two, right?
And a great agent to connect the two. Or
someone like yourself.
Showcase the property. There's a lot of great agents out there. There's a lot. As long as the agent is competent, knows how to showcase that property, that's what we do ultimately.
Yeah.
We market. We don't control. And you get the general public sometimes coming out at us. Oh, you real estate agents controlling the prices.
You're cooking the books.
How do we cook the books?
Yeah.
How do we control the prices?
No, you help sell the dream, right?
We do.
And maximize profits for the seller.
That's exactly what we do. We work on behalf of our client who's paying us, the vendor, the seller. We showcase, we market their property to the best of its ability. That's what a good agent does. And the rest, the market does. The market will see it, recognize it, come through. We've targeted our audience with our marketing. We've hit the right audience, the right buyer pool we're looking for, and the rest is
that's right. And there's more to it now. And you're not just putting ads in the newspaper. You're doing targeted social media campaigns.
There's a lot more than
it's 2025.
It is 2025. There's a lot more. There's social media. There's running through what do you call it? Property portal, social media, media company social media accounts. Is all sorts.
And then platforms like Trade Me, One Roof.
They don't end.
Realestate.co.nz. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of tools in your.
We have a lot
toolkit
of
to
tools. Yeah.
help people.
We have a lot of tools.
So moving away from the CVs then, talking about the property cycle in general, because it's been a bit of a bloodbath the last few years. Our case in point, buying a house for $1.4 million in 2021. Now it's probably not worth that at the moment. Where do you think we are in the property cycle? And long story short, how long should I sit on this fucking house before I can make a profit on it, Ronald?
Look, it depends. Okay, and I see clients. I see clients similar situations to you every day in worse situations, and I'll touch on those in a second as well. How long do you sit on it? Well, how long is a piece of string? But no, if I look back to the GFC, 2008, it took 5 years for that market to balance out. It wasn't even like a rise after 5 years. It was a balancing out for the market to start regulating and start slowly doing its conservative, traditional rise.
It steps in this sort of 7-year-ish cycle.
Correct.
Right.
We've been, how long have we been now? We've been since, so the market turned, and I remember the day it turned, there was a change in some banking legislation. I can't remember what it was exactly, but a mortgage broker gave me a call. A friend of mine gave me a call, mortgage broker, and he said, mate, have you heard the new regulation coming to the banks? I said, no. He told me what it was, and I said, oh, the market's gone. He said, yeah, I agree. And literally, it was December of 2021. We sold our last house, I remember, and I knew the market was about to crash.
Wow.
And it did. And that's since December 2021. So what are we now? 22, 23, 24. I mean, we've been 3.5, nearly 4 years into a tough market.
Yeah,
we have. But do properties still sell? Yeah, they do. And it depends on everyone's individual circumstances. If you're buying and selling in the same market, what does it matter? So you might be selling for less now, and I've got vendors right now that are losing on their sale, and that's fine. They're happy to lose on the sale because they're also gaining on the purchase.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. They're buying and selling in the same market.
So long as they've got a bit of equity left over to play with, right?
Again, not necessarily. You can transfer that mortgage. Now, I've got to touch on it. So I've got some clients that can't actually afford their mortgage. Interest rates are they jumped in when interest rates were at the 2.5, and they were.
That's right.
Everyone thought it was going to continue forever. The good times are going to continue forever.
Yeah, us greedy pricks. Instead of fixing for 5 years at like 2.99, we're like, no, we'll fix it for 6 months because it's going to get lower. We're going to go to zero.
Mate, I'm guilty of the same thing. I mortgage, I didn't fix it at that lower rate, and here I am. But there are some vendors, unfortunately, young first-time buyers that jumped into the property market at that time. Everyone was getting into it.
Yep.
Paying low interest rates. Cheaper. It was cheaper to have a mortgage than it was to rent.
That's
in those
right.
days. Yeah.
The money was cheap as.
That was cheap. Dangerous. Anyway, so you got these young first-time buyers. They can't afford to pay their mortgages right now.
Yeah.
And we're talking about right now, we're actually getting back to traditional sort of rates.
Yeah, high fours, right?
Correct. That's traditional, mid 4 to high 4s, sort of between 4 and 5. That's traditional sort of rates. It's been like that for donkey's years. And these guys can't afford to pay these mortgages. they're actually in negative equity.
Yeah.
We're writing up clauses in our sale and purchases to allow that vendor to go to their mortgage provider, to allow them to release the security interest in that property so that it could settle. And the banks are doing it. So the banks are
helping out.
They're helping out. They're either transferring. Some cases they're writing it off because that purchase has no way of paying that debt back. They're like, some of them had businesses in ruins and they had no way of paying it back. They need to sell their house. It's better off being sold this way than to go to mortgagee sale, and the banks realise that, because if it goes to mortgagee sale, it'll probably sell for less.
Yeah.
The banks know this. So you've also got sometimes the banks are just restructuring that difference in the loan to be a personal loan for that purchaser. So the purchaser's doing it as a personal loan, paying it off over the next 10 or 12 years. Whoa. And going back to renting.
Just to bridge the gap.
But it's better because they can't afford to pay those mortgages, those purchases, and they want out.
Wow. So if you can hold on.
Definitely hold on. Try and pay your mortgage. Be responsible with your money, and hold on. It depends on your circumstance, like I said. If you need to get out because you're not buying, hold on if you can.
Any other advice for people sort of feeling like they're under a bit of pressure from your perspective as an agent?
Under a bit of pressure in terms
of, either
finances,
feeling like they can't get on top of things and might need to sell a house, or even trying to buy and feeling like things are not the right time.
No, it's definitely the right time to buy. There's no doubt about that.
It's a buyer's market.
Okay, prices have, like I said to you earlier on, prices have been stable, fairly stable-ish for the last year. They've bottomed. Are they going to go further south? No, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. This is the bottom it's going to be.
Now's the time,
yeah. Interest rates, is no better time to buy. And it sounds like cliche real estate agents. Of course, every real estate agent is going to say that. No, it really is the bottom of the market. And get in now if you want to secure your first home or invest in property or whatever. Interest rates are getting better. The economy right now is controlling our housing market. The economy is pretty weak, but the economy will get better. There are things that are being done now to try and stimulate the economy. Sure, it's a bit slow and taking off, but it will get better. And you will see traditional real estate rises over the next, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Ronald is a bloody legend, and it was great to catch up with him. I'm lucky to be surrounded by people who can give me confidence, mostly in the fact I don't need to panic about anything, for now anyway. Talking to a real estate agent was the equivalent of talking to someone in the trenches when it comes to property prices, so I thought I'd zoom out a bit and take a holistic look at things with my next guest. He's Ray McKeown, and he's one of our mates from Enable Me. With over 20 years of in-depth experience in financial, commercial, asset and operational management, as well as business process analysis and improvement, that's a mouthful, he's great at looking at the whole picture when it comes to CVs, property prices, and our financial plans and goal setting in general. Ray joins me now from his super flash high security business bunker. Actually, no, he's joining me from his bedroom. I asked Ray to give me his view on how much weight we should put on these CVs if we own a house in Auckland.
Essentially, very little. They're already a year old because they're actually, although they only came out last week, they're technically based on May 2024 numbers.
That's a really good point, yeah.
CVs are a widespread valuation done by a computer. I wouldn't really take much notice of them at all in terms of what I was planning on doing. And if you're not planning on buying or selling a house, they really are irrelevant.
Yeah, true. Is there any way a CV could affect, either increase or decrease materially someone's net worth or their borrowing power, or it's just a metric in behind the scenes?
Not really. If you're trying to borrow money from a bank, they have their own sort of system that they look at for current valuations. And if you're trying to push the limits, they'll actually get a formal valuation, which you'll have to pay for. But so somebody will actually go and look at the house and do bits and pieces. So I don't think CVs have a significant effect on there, unless it's really at the margins. Particularly if your house moves pretty much in line with everyone else. So in Auckland, I think it was a 9% general decrease across the residential property but from the last CVs. If yours was dramatically different to that, it might have an effect around the edges, but it's creating a lot of noise. It's not creating a lot of reality.
Yeah, right. Okay. And I guess to that, is there any benefit to anyone? I mean, if my CV, which pretty much matched our purchase price a few years ago, has dipped by a significant amount, does that mean I'm going to pay less rates all of a sudden?
No. So I think the estimated increase in rates for next year is about 5.8%, and that's across the board.
Yeah.
And the property movements was 9%. So if your property went down by 9%, your rates will go up by 5.8%. If your property went down by less than 9%, your rates increase will be a little bit more. And if your property went down by more than 9%, your rates increase will be a little bit less. So the rates thing does have an effect. In fact, I was telling someone the other day, when I first bought a house, which was many years ago by looking at my hair color, objected to his rates of valuation when it came out from the council and tried to get it lower because it kept his rates down.
Right.
And he generally got 10% off.
Okay, so that's a lever we can pull, and everyone's allowed to do that?
I don't know the exact system, but when you get your formal valuation, there is a formal process whereby you can object to the number that you've been given, and it will be reviewed. I don't know the details of how it works.
Yeah.
Most people don't. They just sort of accept it.
Yeah.
But you can ask for it to go up or down. But if you ask for it to go up, you're essentially asking for a bigger rates bill.
No one wants that, do they? Rates is this kind of the thing that you buy your first home, you kind of forget about it until you get the bill, and you're like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of media hubbub around the announcement that CVs were finally out. They were delayed again, but we finally got them. Based on what you do, have you seen any behavioural responses to CVs? Obviously, I'm an emotional person, so all my questioning is based around people's emotions and understanding of things, particularly for people like me who don't quite get the world. Has there been any sort of panic or overconfidence either way that you've seen around these?
I don't think there's been a lot. It's unusual for them to have gone down. So I think that's something that most people may never have experienced before. Because I mean, I think normally when the rates comes in and it says your property's gone up in value, everybody suddenly feels richer. I mean, it actually has no effect on, your house is worth today what someone would pay for it if you sold it, not what the council thought it was worth a year ago.
Yeah.
So realistically, it doesn't do much, but you're right. There's an emotional response to a big number changing. And I mean, for many people, a 9% could be $100,000.
Totally.
Yeah, so it's
absolutely.
Like a big number.
And how do these, updates in the valuations, as you're telling me, it's not intrinsically sort of, it's somewhat connected to the property price. As things fluctuate, they tend to sort of move in parallel, right? How do these numbers fit in with the wider property cycle in New Zealand? Is it what you'd expect to see? I mean, you said it's a surprise that they went down as well. Is that does that fit with the rest of the cycle?
It wasn't a surprise that they went down, but I think it's unusual. So they do them roughly every 3 years, and normally 3 years later, your house is worth more than it was 3 years before. So people aren't used to seeing their council valuation dropping.
Yeah.
So that's having an effect. So, I mean, it does follow the property cycle because they are intended to reflect at a point in time, which was sometime in May 2024, what all the properties were worth if they were being sold on that day. But they're not that specific, so they don't know they don't look at how well maintained your property is versus the neighbours, for instance. It's largely what's a property of this size on your street worth.
Yeah, and they don't know if you've put a beautiful new bathroom in or put a new roof coating on that makes it look...
If you do a major renovation that involves a building consent, etc., when you complete it and it's signed off, the council actually revalues your property outside of the standard cycle.
Okay, well, that's interesting to know.
Because your property has changed versus the norm. So, but then when you go back into the normal cycle, you just go back into the 3-year valuations.
Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. So, okay, if we pull back now and look at someone's strategy, they're looking to hopefully grow wealth, make money, save money, have a plan. What do you think people should do right now, specifically talking about property? Are we buying, we're selling, we're holding? Are we picking up 10 investment properties before prices start skyrocketing again? What's going on?
Well, that depends on the situation that you're in. I mean, if you were in a situation yesterday where the best thing for you to do was to be smashing into the mortgage that you have on your home, which is not deductible, the answer today is the same. if you've got to a situation whereby you have significant equity in your home and you have the cash flow to afford it, then buying an investment property today could be the right thing for you in the same way that it was yesterday. The council valuations themselves shouldn't change the answer to those questions, but those answers will always be dependent upon the person that you're talking to and what their situation is now and what they think it will be in the future. So, I mean, you're always looking forward to what's going to happen. So if you're making plans to dramatically change your income or move house and upgrade, etc., that has an effect on what you should be doing from an investment structure in the same way that it would always do.
I guess it comes back to, really good advice we've been given by Katie and by Shelley from Enable Me is build your plan, stick to your plan, stay the course, right?
Yeah, and you should review your plan when things change, just to see if you need to change your plan. But it doesn't mean throw the plan away. It means look at it and say, does what's changed now mean that my plan should be different? But the council valuations, I don't think for very, very many people at all would have changed their plan, because it won't have changed their situation.
Okay, good to know. Have you got any advice for people who have had a pretty rough couple of years financially speaking?
Yeah, well, I mean, a plan is a forward-looking thing. So understand your situation now. You sort of have to just flush what happened in the past, because you can't change it. You can't go back in time. None of those decisions can be revisited. So whether you got them right or wrong, it's sort of irrelevant now. You need to understand where you're at now and where you think you're going to be going. Learn from your past mistakes and don't repeat them, but look forward and decide where you want to be and how you want to get there. That's what a plan is for. I suppose the thing that comes across for me when I'm dealing with a lot of people is that doing nothing is a decision. It's just not generally a very good one. So you need to actively look at what you want to do and where you want to be and where you are now, and figure out how you connect those three things. Because if you do nothing, you'll get somewhere. You just haven't got a clue where it is.
Okay, so don't panic. A CV is A, slightly dated, and B, although the figure can move in the same way the market value of your house moves, the exact number is not the be-all and end-all. So long as you are making the right move for your own strategy, it kind of doesn't matter where the CV is compared to last month. Stay the course, set your goals, get good advice. Thanks to both Ronald and Ray for their expertise. More great minds giving their 2 cents so we can make a few more dollars down the track. In the next episode of Where's My Money, I got scammed. Someone stole my identity, and it's time to tell my story. No, it's really not that bad, but it did happen, and we're going to delve into scammers and how we can outsmart them. Until then, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and of course you can watch full eps now on YouTube. Big thanks to producer Lachlan and video guy Brody for bringing it all together. I'll see you next time, where I'll continue to ask the question, where's my money?